I'm delighted to welcome Ambassador Tariq Fatemi, the Special Assistant for Foreign Affairs to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, back to the Carnegie Endowment. I'm also delighted to welcome Ambassador Sheikh, Pakistan's ambassador to the United States, and his embassy colleagues to the endowment today. I think this is your first visit to Carnegie, Ambassador, and so I want to say that you, your colleagues, and your guests from Pakistan are always welcome here. You have an open door. We're really privileged to have as our special guest Ambassador Fatemi with us this morning. Tariq is an old Washington hand and has served here at the Pakistan Embassy twice, including as Pakistan's ambassador to the United States. He is now, as I mentioned earlier, the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister of Pakistan on Foreign Affairs, a position with ministerial rank, and one that he has also held previously for the former Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif as well. In the interests of truth in advertising, I must also tell you that he is an old friend of mine whom I have known for almost 30 years. While Ambassador Fatemi has always been an articulate exponent of Pakistan's interest, he has also been a strikingly candid interlocutor, as I can attest, having seen him in both public and private settings. And I think we will see that quality on display this morning as well. As all of us who follow the news know all too well, Pakistan is going through challenging times right now. And I don't think we have a better guide to walk us through Pakistan's current circumstances, the state of US-Pakistan relations, and Pakistan's positioning in the greater South Asian region and in the world than Ambassador Tariq Fatemi. I'm truly grateful that he has taken time out from what has been a quite grueling schedule of meetings with the new administration and on Capitol Hill over the last few days to be with us this morning. Thank you very much, Tariq, for being here. I want to invite you to the podium to speak to us for about 20 minutes or so, after which I will interrogate you for a few minutes, and then we will open the floor to a discussion among those who are gathered. Thank you so much, and I'm grateful that you've come back.
Thank you. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, the Carnegie Endowment. I have been very fortunate in having this young man as a friend, but also as a genuine counselor, because when it comes to issues related to such unimportant things as US-India relations and what is taking place in the Indian Ocean, there is no one better versed in the intricacies of these relationships than Ashley. In fact, you and I met more than 40 years ago. Yes.
You have a better memory than I.
Yes, yes. It was 1985, right?
Yes.
And you were studying at
Georgetown,
right? And ever since I have benefited from my relationship with him. He has been a huge help, both in terms of me understanding the United States and especially United States relations with our part of the world. I want to begin by telling you that all of you are aware that Pakistan and US have been friends for the past many decades. And even when they were arguing and on occasions being a little impolite with one another, the core relationship remained one of cordiality and confidence. I would also like to mention that we have been partners in many an adventure and a few misadventures as well. It goes back to the very earliest days. In fact, the first message from the founding father of Pakistan, Mr. Jinnah, addressed to President Truman, was warm, friendly, and one that assured the United States of the fact that the people of Pakistan were genuinely interested in having good relations with the United States. But coming to more recent times, you know, we have a government that has been in power for just over a year. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, has made it very clear that his primary interest in all foreign policy relationships is to seek and identify areas relating to the economy, to trade, to investment in the relationship. We are not seeking friends in order to bolster our defensive capacity. We are seeking friends in order to bring to Pakistan the possibility of the people of Pakistan having a better future in terms of their livelihood, in terms of employment opportunities, and in terms of them getting to know how to move ahead in life. And therefore, in my meetings here in Washington, and there were far too many, the ambassador really put me through a grinder from early morning to late evening. But what we have conveyed to the very senior people on both the Senate and in the House is that please look at Pakistan as a country of 240 million people living in a part of the world that is not only important to the US, but also is consequential in terms of peace and stability in a very large area known as South Asia. Because there's a tendency in Washington that if you live next to a very large country, the shadow it casts leads you to look in directions that do not necessarily do justice to the smaller country. And in case of Pakistan, all of you are scholars, we live in the shadow of two of the most populous countries in the world. And then we have two others, smaller countries, but countries that are more than often huge headaches for us. And I'll begin with those, Iran and Afghanistan. With Iran, we have good relations, cooperative relations, but the Iranians on occasions do things to others which then have an impact on us. On Afghanistan, please permit me to elaborate. It is my view, my personal view, that the American withdrawal lacked the finesse that one associates with American initiatives. It was quite haphazard, if I may even use the term chaotic. Now, out of that chaos has emerged a regime in Kabul that is proving to be a huge headache for us. And not only has that regime not honored many of the commitments made during the Doha process, but the fact that the United States has left behind hundreds of millions of dollars worth of very sophisticated arms and armaments. Even such a thing as a night vision goggle is turning to be a huge element in the armory of the Taliban, some 80,000 of it which they used to come to Pakistan. And they come often, and they are coming there not to extend a hand of friendship, but in order to engage in acts of terrorism. Only recently, less than 2 weeks ago, we came close to a huge, massive disaster that would have been a grievous wound for us. A passenger train bearing about 500 people going to their homes for the Eid holidays was captured by an organization known as TTP and assistance of other groups. And their intentions were quite clear. We managed, I suppose because of our skill, and also as Pakistanis, we of course give God the share of thanks as well, in having come out of it reasonably well. 20 civilians, 21 civilians were killed, and around the same number of our special troops lost their lives. And this happens very often. And when these groups come into Pakistan, they not only aim at killing our people and destroying our facilities, but then they become a threat to all our efforts to invite the investors, to enhance our tourism, and to make Pakistan more attractive to non-Pakistanis. And we have been using all our efforts to try to convince the regime in power in Kabul that they too have to take the responsibility of preventing these people who are living and operating from Afghanistan. Iran is going through convulsion, which it always does. One is never sure what exactly is happening there. And over the last few months, according to many newspapers, they have lost some assets which have led to troubles within. But frankly, for us, relations with India are critical, because India is a country of 1.5, is it so, Ashley? Yep. People, and their economy is doing very well, and they have been blessed with the largest and the generosity of the United States that has enabled them to enhance their capacities and undertake action unilaterally without in any way giving consideration to verbal understandings and written agreements. So the tendency on their part to engage in unilateral actions is, of course, a cause of concern to us. With China, we have a relationship that goes back to the early days. They are engaged in economic projects. They are engaged in giving us loans with which we are advancing our industrialization. But that is not my message to you, Ashley, and your friends and colleagues here. What I want to now expand is what I stated in the very first sentence. That is that we want the United States to look at Pakistan for what it is and not look at Pakistan through the prism of A or B or C, because that will bring a distortion that will not be of advantage to either the United States or us. So please see what Pakistan is doing and its government is doing currently. It has stated very clearly that we want a relationship with the United States, with Europe, with everybody else that is focused on enhancing our economic capacity enhancing trade, and we are bending backwards to convince people that this is a right place for you to come and invest. And that was my message here as well, that we have had an excellent track record. The United States has pitched in many a time to come to our aid and assistance, but right now, we want you to come and see what opportunities there are for the two countries of us to work together to enhance Pakistan's economy and the sectors of education and health and medicine and IT. We have tens of thousands of young kids who are bright, intelligent, and hardworking. If given the opportunities, they could be of huge help and assistance, both in terms of the expertise that they bring and the money that they will earn. The Prime Minister's foreign visits are all oriented on this. I want to tell you, there was a time when what we used to prepare in diplomatic parlance, TPs, talking points, they all related to politics. Now I have to get the TPs done with the help of people whose expertise is the economy, because that's what the Prime Minister wants. And we have been successful to a large extent, because a year ago, we were suffering from an inflation rate that was around 33, 34%. Now, last week, it was 1.4%. And these are World Bank figures. The other thing is the IMF only day before yesterday, at staff level, it has given its approval to the next tranche of assistance to Pakistan, because the terms and conditions of the IMF are very rigid, and you have to respect them and you have to honor them. Another important and welcome development has been that the World Bank has, for the very first time, approved a multi-year, 10-year assistance package of $20 billion. Now, actually, for you, $20 billion is not a big sum. But for us, it is huge. But more importantly than what it is the message that it sends. And all our visits, as I stated to you, is focused on this very fact. What can Pakistan offer to its friends in terms of the facilities for them to come and join us and make money for both sides? And in this context, I want to tell you that our focus is not a secret. The world knows about it. Our focus has been the Gulf, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. And we are engaged in very serious negotiations. And within the next few months, I am expecting formal agreements being concluded that would be of immense importance to us. There are other areas which are also important to us, and we are working hard on them, are the Central Asian states. And you know, the Central Asian, many Pakistanis are actually from Central Asia. And again, I think before the end of the financial year, 30th June, we should have major agreements formalized with Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. The negotiations are going on with Kazakhstan. So I'm stating all these things because when I was your age, I'm serious. You haven't aged at all. Our focus was totally different. Can we get some military technology? Can we advance the range of our rockets? The Prime Minister is not interested in it. We have enough to safeguard our core values. And that's it. And we would like to have meaningful, mutually advantageous relationship with all countries. It should be a two-way traffic, that both sides should feel that they are getting a fair shake out of that particular thing. And as I stated, of course, we have good relations with the UK and with the European countries of the EU. EU is a major, massive trading partner for Pakistan. But now we would want to see something similar in our relations with the United States. That's why I have given you this background. And the President Trump is a businessman. In fact, he's one of the most skilled and successful businessmen. We respect him. We respect his colleagues. And I was telling them all this, what I'm telling you, that please send people to Pakistan. Why? Because you have got to go and see. And there's one area purposefully which I'm keeping back from you, is the fact that a new area of extreme importance has emerged in Pakistan, that is our minerals. And since that is the name of the game in town, minerals, frankly, I never knew that we had such a rich deposits of minerals, and especially those that are colloquially or referred to as rare earth. It's a new term, we never heard of it. Rare earth, I don't know what it means, but it's rare and it's very expensive. And we have people coming in now from the United States, the Arab countries, the Europeans, the Australians, who want to have a look at it. So we have arranged for an international conference to take place in the second week of April, am I right? Second week of April, where I have been assured that a delegation from the United States, from the administration, will also be traveling to Pakistan for this purpose. Because this is lying under the earth, not of much use, and if we can get partners who can come and take advantage of those riches that could be shared with everybody else, we would be very happy. We already had an Australian company that had initiated work, Australian-Canadian Recordake, you may have heard of it. The Saudis have already signed the agreement for a block there, but it's enormous, and we would want the people to come and have a look at that. So currently, the government wants good economic relations, meaningful, mutually advantageous. How much better would it be if we could also create a web of relationships with our neighbors that would have been advantageous to the entire region of what is known as South Asia? We have virtually no relationship with India. And it's sad. It's sad why? Because so many people in Pakistan originally came from India, just as millions who are in India went from Pakistan to India. We are waiting for a response from India. It is they who snapped, who cut the linkages by taking action that was unilateral and against all prior understandings and agreements. It is sad, because as you know, I was present in that historic meeting between Prime Minister Vajpayee and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif in Lahore. I was also present in many of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's meetings with Mr. Modi. I think there is much that is common to us and very little that separates us. The leadership has to look beyond today to the future and what the future holds. India is doing extremely well. I'll be the first to admit that. But India and Pakistan and the region could benefit much more if India and Pakistan were to engage in a relationship that would be advantageous to them and the billions that live in these areas. Now, the United States, as a friend of both, could, I suppose, take a lead, and as it is advocating peaceful resolution of issues in other parts of the globe, they could possibly think in terms of making a similar suggestion. Pakistan is prepared to have warm, cordial, mutually advantageous relationships with all its neighbors, irrespective of anyone. But that relationship has to be based on a criteria that is just, fair, and equitable. A country that is big, whichever it may be, cannot expect to get an unfair share. And therefore, my dear friend, since you are a scholar and also part-time diplomat, Ashley doesn't tell anyone, but he was actually running the American embassy in Delhi. Right?
Don't tell my boss that.
No? That's true. It's true. So, with friends like Ashley, I hope he and his people will go around and take this message from me that Pakistan's focus, direction, desire, ambition is to create a peaceful and cooperative region in South Asia that is of advantage to all countries. How sad it is that the only region of the world that has no regional economic cooperation institution. You have everywhere else in the world, the missing link is South Asia, which is frankly very embarrassing. Because the organization known as SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, was to meet in October 2016 in Islamabad. It was our turn to host it. When suddenly one fine morning, we were told that India would not be able to participate. But funnily enough, within the next few hours, all the others came up with the same message, all the other member states. It was so beautifully synchronized that it left no chance of any misunderstanding as to who was pulling the strings. It's sad. I told the ambassadors who came to tell me this, and they were crestfallen. They were all truly pained that SAARC, which needs the effort and contribution of all the member states, they are all poor. It's just a question of who is poorer than the other. And move forward. Connectivity, trade, investment. Why call for investment from across the globe when these countries can invest in each other? We could move southwards. India could move northwards and westwards. The opportunities are huge, but one has to look at things from the prism of the interest of all the member states rather than only one. So I close my remarks with my home and my aspiration that South Asia too would become an area with which the United States would be having relations that would be more or less the same, equitable, fair, just. And through you, I send that message, and I want to thank you for inviting me. I have been here many times before, but always to have coffee with him. But tonight, this day, he wanted to extract a promise that I should come and speak. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to spend a few minutes speaking to Ambassador Fatemi. What you might want to ask him at the conclusion of our conversation. Now, my colleagues at the Carnegie Endowment have spent the last several years trying to bring me into the 21st century. And part of that effort has been to give me this device, which I'm supposed to use to accept your questions. So I have to tell you that there are cards, I believe, literally where you are sitting, which have QR codes. And if you can use your phones or use your devices to scan those QR codes, any questions that you want me to ask Ambassador Fatemi on your behalf will mysteriously show up on this device. Now, when I grew up, I didn't even know that such things actually could be done. But apparently they can. And this is the first time that I've been put to work testing this technology out. So we're going to try and see how well it does. But as I speak to Ambassador Fatemi, please use this technology so that I can give as many of you a chance to engage in this conversation with the ambassador. I heard two messages from you, Tariq, both of which were really good news in so many ways. First, that on significant issues of at least macroeconomic adjustment, things involving inflation, things involving prices, which matter to the average citizen. Pakistan has done remarkably well in the last year. And I hope that that trajectory will be sustained. The second message that I thought was extremely important was your emphasis that Pakistan is consciously shifting away from the centrality of securitization in its foreign policy to focusing on development and the spread of prosperity. So let me start by asking you the first question. If this strategy is to succeed, what Pakistan achieves within its boundaries would be just as important as what Pakistan achieves with respect to trade with others. And the United States is a very important trading partner of Pakistan.
Very true.
Unfortunately, we are at a stage now where we have become much more pessimistic about trade than we have been in this country for a very, very long time. So if you were to look at the next, say, 2 to 5 years, what do you see the prospects of increasing US-Pakistan trade to be? And what do you think the complications are likely to be given the changes in our own mood about international trade?
Thank you, Ashley. The question that you have asked, I think, would be more applicable to countries such as China and the big European economies, Canada. Our trading relations are so small and so insignificant in the larger scheme of things. There are no tariff issues. We are not making cars and dumping them on the American soil. So ours is a very modest role to play. But we have already, and I'll give you an evidence, for many years we were not permitting soya beans to be exported to Pakistan. We have permitted that. It's a few $100 million, but it is. Similarly, we are the biggest buyer of American cotton.
Yes.
Now that American cotton is then used to produce textiles and goods and massively. Now, if those textile goods that are exported to America could receive some kind of a favorable arrangement, such as the EU has, which is known as GSP Plus, which incidentally came in when I was the ambassador in Brussels. A lot of work had to be done. So as a country whose economy is, I mean, it would be difficult for the American USTR to look on the board and actually find what Pakistan is trading with. So those kinds of arrangements is what we are pointing out. And you know, an American role in promoting the economy could be in terms of what they do to enhance our education facilities. America has that capacity. What it can do in terms of removing these diseases that are a scourge in Pakistan. Something like what Bill Gates does when it comes to polio. You know, they spend a lot of money and a lot of effort in Pakistan and many other countries. So that's what we are talking of. Investment, again, there is no such thing as American government administration investment, but there are big companies, and if those companies can be assured that Pakistan's now regime is far more attractive, that we have created a special organization in Pakistan. It's an addition to the government of Pakistan's framework. It is known as SIFC, Special Investment, you know, kind of an arrangement, wherein we have brought in experts from Europe and the United States to be sitting there and facilitating those tasks. You could even send people to Pakistan and say, look here, these are the roadblocks. Why don't you remove them, and we would be more than happy to enhance our trade. So that is what we are thinking of in terms with America. But we are encouraging the Danish, the Belgians, the French, the Germans, the Americans, everyone to come to Pakistan, look at it, what the facilities are, and where you suggest that a modification would make it more, we are willing to do that as well.
Did you get a chance to raise these issues in the last few days with your interlocutors on the Hill?
Yes, no, I don't call it an aid. I have simply called for a relationship which can take care of the needs of the poor of Pakistan. We have 240 million people, and we want to see them live a better life. And that better life, especially in terms of education. You know, the Prime Minister, when he was the Chief Minister of the Punjab, which incidentally is the biggest province of Pakistan, 56% of Pakistanis live in the Punjab, he had actually established special schools that were far better than private schools. And those kids, 15, 20 years ago, who went to those schools, some of them now are occupying very important positions. They are bright, they are intelligent, they are smart, and they had the opportunity to use laptops from a very early age. So you can see that this is qualitatively a different set of people. So those are the areas where the Americans could also be of huge help to us.
Well, I hope your hopes, at least on expanded trade, are realized, because it's been now several years where the United States has not had a GSP program. And so the question of giving Pakistan any special opportunities would really depend on the mood in Congress with respect to reinstituting this. But let me ask you a question that goes to the heart of what you just said. For all the advances that Pakistan has made in terms of macroeconomic stability, forced by significant IMF conditionality of the last few years, how is Pakistan doing with respect to its own development agenda? Investing in education, investing in public health. Because it seems to me you have a very difficult task. On one hand, the international financial institutions are squeezing you to suppress government spending. On the other hand, you still have a very sluggish private investment environment. And the consequence of both these elements end up taking a toll on essentially Pakistan's development trajectory. So how does the Prime Minister think of the exit from this conundrum? What do you do?
is the dilemma, it's a poor man's dilemma everywhere, both individually, community-wise, and on the national level. There's no doubt about it. But on education and on health, the Prime Minister is quite willing to be innovative. So, for example, you know, these special schools that he had established in the Punjab, he's now decided that he would establish similar things in the capital area. And only 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks or maybe 10 days ago, an area has been selected where these kids from the poorest of the poor would be brought in. The only criteria would be that they are smart and they are willing to go to the school and get all the facilities. They will start off with laptops, for example, you know, and so on. So it will cater to maybe 10,000, you're right. But a start has to be made. But this is where not necessarily the American government, but American foundations, American capital houses could be, we want to encourage them to come to Pakistan and play a role in this. Incidentally, we are also urging similarly to our Arab brothers that they should come in and, you know, establish, for example, Bahrain a few years ago offered us $1 billion to create a school for nurses. Now, you all think that in our part of the world, nurses are people who come and clean the room and go out. But without good nurses, you don't have good hospitals. They'll die. The mortality rate would be very high. So we are continuing. But as you rightly stated, and as I had stated in my own remarks, is that the orientation, the Prime Minister has been able to bring about a clear shift in what he feels Pakistan should be in the next 10 years. That's the important.
Let me ask you a question about China's investments in Pakistan in this context. It seems to me that China has made major investments essentially in power generation, in construction, communications. How long do you think those projects under CPEC will take to come to fruition? And will the ordinary person in Pakistan be able to see the payoffs? Because it seems to me that there is an economic question with respect to the financing of these projects and the debt that has to be serviced. But then there is also the political question of, will there be a payoff for the average citizen in Pakistan? How do people see the presence of China as an economic player in Pakistan's life today?
I want to mention to you that in 2011, the Chinese leadership began thinking of what came to be known as BRI, right?
Yes.
Belt and Road Initiative. And CPEC is an offspring from that big plan. And then when Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif came to power in 2013, one of the first things he did within days was to dispatch me to Beijing because I had served there. So I knew someone. And to find out what exactly was this and what were the Chinese planning to do about it. It was with mutual consent of the two sides, we felt that the two things that we needed urgently at that point in time, you see how the thinking process changes, was infrastructure and power. Because our factories were shut, houses were dark, there was a horrible power shortage. So they came in. They came in and they have built these, and now, in fact, we are self-sufficient for the major cities. It's a question now of management rather than of provision. And the other thing was infrastructure, roads, highways, connecting us to China, connecting us from amongst the capitals of the 4 provinces and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan and all that. It's all there. I invite you to come to Pakistan. The road network in Pakistan is fabulous, fabulous. Some of the roads that go in the northern areas, would put to shame many of our European colleagues. really. They are fantastic, and they go over 8,000, 10,000 feet. There is a tunnel that's going to be 18 kilometers under the water so that the road can go. Now that will obviously make the country more attractive to investors, more attractive to tourists, more attractive to people who want to come and do something good in Pakistan. But that having been completed, now the focus would be really, as once again I'm repeating myself, these areas that can bring about a transformation in the lives and the livelihood of the common people.
Can I use that to pivot to politics? Because one of the consequences of the CPEC efforts has been the stimulation of local antagonisms. And I'm thinking particularly of what you referred to in recent times, the Baluch opposition to Chinese activity. How does one manage these kinds of programs if you cannot bring on board essentially people who feel that these projects are either executed over their own heads or without taking into account their own equities? In other words, how do you manage the politics of what may be, on the face of it, a successful economic program? And how has Pakistan addressed that issue so far? Because it seems to me that even if you put all the issues of debt and debt management aside, if these projects are subverted because of domestic opposition and domestic resentment, you're going to run into trouble, not only on the debt servicing side, because you still have to pay for all the monies invested, but you're also going to run afoul in terms of your relations with your donors. So what has Pakistan's experience been on this count so far?
Actually, your premise is based on newspaper accounts.
Okay.
And it should not be for a scholar such as you.
Okay.
How is it that these people who come from Afghanistan, they don't come from Iran or China, or they don't come from the United States, they come from Afghanistan. They are terrorists. And they have made it very clear that we want to make Pakistan and Afghanistan. I'm not happy with that situation. I'm a Muslim. And I want to say that I am a practicing Muslim. But I don't believe that the Islam that they are propagating is the Islam that the Holy Prophet came and gave the message to mankind. That women should not get any education, that females should be locked up in the houses. I'm sorry, we don't believe in that. These people come in primarily for destruction and mayhem. And why is it that it is only the Chinese that they target? Please tell me. They are investors from Japan, they are investors from Europe, because a message, they want to send a message. They want to bring a cleavage between China and Pakistan because they are targeting the Chinese. And it is true that the Chinese have lost quite a few in the past 1 year because they know that it is Chinese investment that is going to bring about a major transformation in terms of connectivity, in terms of power, in terms of facilities. The Chinese are now investing in a big way in laptops and what do you call it, all these related things, artificial intelligence and all those things, things that you and I never knew anything about. So it is a difficult task, and which is why I explained in my earlier thing that the Taliban in Kabul actually have not honored the commitments they made to you or to us or to anyone else. And they say that, look here, we are helpless because if we were to take action against them, they would bring in other people and so on and so forth. But they have to, I want to make it very clear here, that Afghan regime has to control these people, TTP, BLA, ISIS, Khorasan group, the whole, it's a motley crowd. And we will not permit them to come and hit us in Pakistan on Pakistani territory. We'll take very strong action, and we have said so, and we have told them, and of course, they claim that, they are helpless. But then they are helpless, then there are other things to take place. So that's it.
So when you look over the next few years, what is the future of Pakistan-Afghanistan relations? Because if you have a regime in Kabul that is going to assert incapacity, then we are likely to see a persistence of these kinds of cross-border incidents on both sides. Where does that leave Pakistan? I mean, yes, Pakistan can, of course, address this through military means, and so on and so forth. But won't that just lead to a further escalation and a further intensification of what has been going on for the last few years?
You see, there are a number of aspects. For one, I want to tell you that the number of Afghans illegally living in Pakistan is very high. We are going to be tough with these guys in terms of demanding that they should have entry papers, they should have some identification papers with them. Secondly, we are talking to the United States and the European countries that had made a promise at Doha, that all those people who had worked for foreign embassies or foreign projects, who were more likely to be targeted by the militants, they would be taken back to those countries. Some countries have, some have not, or some are waiting to do it. So when they go back, the chances, the targets would be reduced. The targets would be reduced. They would not be there, and these people would not have the excuse that Pakistan is providing shelter to people who work for the American embassy or the British embassy or the French projects or whatever it is. And the third thing is that we are also going to tighten our border controls so that this free flow of people coming in without documentation and doing whatever they want to do. It's a long run. It's a long, painful, and expensive run, but we have to do it. There's no doubt about it. And only recently, in fact, 2 or 3 days ago, we had sent a special envoy who knows Afghanistan, has been ambassador of Afghanistan, and he was able to meet some of the leaders. Ambassador Sadiq, you know him also. He went there. And the regime, of course, claims that they are much too weak, that they are unable to take on these guys. And should they take on these guys, they would coalesce and form a bigger coalition and become a bigger problem for them. So on that also, we have said that we would be happy to assist them, cooperate with them. But the business of these 8, 10, 12 people coming into Pakistan, blowing up the trains and blowing up cars, we are not going to tolerate it.
So let me pivot off that to a question that has come from the floor. And that is, there are strong opportunities for US businesses in important sectors of Pakistan, but the security situation has been a big deterrent. So how would the government of Pakistan be able to reduce these security threats? What kind of assurances can it offer foreign investors?
I have addressed it sufficiently well. I'll be the last person to say that it's 100% secure. It is not. But there are people from many countries who are present in Pakistan now and are engaged in these activities, and they hire guards, and they take private guards that sometimes the government also provides. For example, the government provides protection to the Chinese investors, especially those setting up their shop in what is known as specialized economic zones, SEZs. So we will continue to do that, and eventually you will see all these countries in Asia and Africa have suffered from these kinds of problems. They have. Even parts of India, and you know what the areas that I mean, in the northeast and all that, they have been plagued by terrorism. But it's the responsibility of the government to study the situation and take the appropriate steps. and we'll do that. I don't think that terrorism should be a major factor. It can be a factor, but it cannot be a major factor in the decision-making process of the investors. Large number of investor companies are there, even in Balochistan, and the area where the minerals are, that is swarming with people who non-Pakistanis from many countries. And we are making arrangements to provide them the necessary security.
We have a question here that asks about Pakistan and its relationships with China. Specifically, how will Pakistan balance its relations with China vis-a-vis those of the United States? And I suspect this is also tied to the issue of the worsening of US-China relations.
Yeah.
What complications do the dynamics in Washington vis-a-vis Beijing
Very interesting.
impose on you?
Dr. Kissinger, in his book, The White House Years, refers to the tremendous opportunity provided by Pakistan. So now you are referring to the tremendous hurdles that the Americans will think we are. No. We have a relationship with China that is out in the open. There's nothing to hide about it. We have been good friends from day one. It's not a later event. One of the first things that we did was to establish diplomatic relations with China in 49. We got freedom in 47. I have told the Americans, and we'll continue telling them, that each relationship has to be seen for what it is doing and in what areas it is doing what. That's the important thing. I don't think it is an issue of either or. It's not an issue of either or. And if the relationship between Pakistan and China and Pakistan and the United States was good in 72, it was good when the Soviets marched into Afghanistan on the 27th of December 1979. I was then the political counselor in Moscow. So I got a call from my counterpart in the American embassy, very distinguished colleague, Ed Jerijian. She would know. And he said, "Is this true?" So I said, "Look here, guys, you have far better communication systems than it is. But it is true." And he said, "How are you sure?" I said, "For 2 weeks we have been telling you that they are preparing to march in, but you dismissed our fears." He said, "Yeah, that's true." I'm telling you the truth. We knew them. We knew what was taking place. But on a scale, of course, nobody expected that. Then when 9/11 took place, we had excellent relations with China, and yet we did not hesitate to commit ourselves to work with you, right? And we did. So why should there be an obstacle at this stage? We are a small player in the game that the big powers play. We don't get into these things, I want to tell you. In fact, the ability to stay away from this is what gave confidence. And if you have any doubt, you can see the master, what he has written in the book.
I must gently push back on you, Tariq, on one question.
Please do.
You don't want to convey the impression that Pakistan has simply been a victim of its circumstances, because there are choices that Pakistan made along the way that have also contributed to creating some of these outcomes. And I think particularly now it seems somewhat ironic that Pakistan made choices after 9/11 with respect to the groups that it chose to support in Afghanistan. And now these groups are in power, and they don't quite seem to have the gratitude that I think the leadership in Pakistan at the time had expected that it would display. And so in some sense, every one of the actors involved in this has made choices because they seemed the most obvious or the best thing to do at the time. But there were longer term unintended consequences, which we are all sort of dealing with. I mean, if you were to look back 20 years and advise the Pakistani government about what it should have done, say, in 2004, with respect to support for the then Afghan Taliban, what would your advice have been, knowing what we know now?
I don't know, but let me begin by saying that if there's one country in the world of which I have failed to understand fully, that's Afghanistan. I swear to you, I am very comfortable with Soviet Union, the Russia or China, and of course, thanks to you, the United States. But I really don't know. But please note that when the Americans reacted to 9/11, they did it for reasons that they knew and in a manner that they decided. It's not as if the Pakistanis told them, you go and do this and you bring so and so. We didn't. And when Ashraf Ghani and the others came into power, we worked closely with them. By and large, we must have made many mistakes, I'm quite sure. But by and large, I want to tell you that we always endeavored not to place ourselves in the politics of Afghanistan. Yes, I would say that on occasions our effort was that we should have a well-disposed, a friendly government in Kabul. We didn't want a government in Kabul that would become a problem for us. That part is true. But whether it was Ashraf Ghani or the others, all of them, we maintain good relations. You know, we, the Prime Minister, went there repeatedly, assured them and told them that we would do whatever they wanted to do. And we did that. We did that very closely. I want to tell you, close consultations. Not far away from here in the Vice President's house, Vice President Biden hosted lunch for the Pakistanis and the Afghans. And there also, the messaging was that we wanted peace and stability to return to Afghanistan. We did not want chaos to reign supreme there, because there is no way that you can create a wall of China between Pakistan and Afghanistan. It is very porous, and the ethnicity and the relationship go back to hundreds of years. So that kind of a relation will stay, we understand that, but we never ever advise the Americans or the Afghans what they should be doing and who they should be favoring. It was not there. And if you read, I'm sure you must have read more than any one of us, that even in the very last moments, they were asking the president, are you sure you can stay? Are you sure you can hold on? And he went on telling them that, yes, we have the army, we can stay on. And then, most ironically, the report says that the next message was that he had left the country. Okay. Yeah. So, but it is very complex. There is no doubt about it. And this is the relationship in which there are many misunderstandings and misconceptions. But a peaceful relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan is essential for both. Incidentally, Afghanistan also has huge resources, minerals, petroleum, all kinds of things are there. And there are a few states, do you know, who are brave enough to be there. I don't know if you know this. They are there. Their people are there at great risk. So a better relationship would be better too. As far as with the United States, we have no complaint, except that we feel that, I feel even embarrassed that I should be saying something from a gentleman who is no longer the president, but the fact is that it wasn't well negotiated. This is my impression. I could be wrong. That there should have been a better arrangement for a transition.
You're referring to the Doha process.
Yes, and the very hasty decision to go. But since this is a domestic issue, I shouldn't be commenting on it. Thank you very much.
I'm going to ask you one last question, since they remind me that I have to get you on your way to New York. And this is a delicate one in the context of Pakistan's politics. But the question is, what role does the army play in approving the policy priorities of the government? What is the nature of civil-military relations today, in your experience now?
You see, the armed forces of Pakistan have always been a major player in the country. There's no denying that. And that is primarily because of the neighborhood that we live in, because of the kind of relations we have with the neighboring countries and all that. Here, under Shahbaz Sharif, it's no secret, and I don't want to be misquoted in a Pakistani newspaper, but Shahbaz Sharif has established very cordial and very meaningful relationship with the armed forces, And one reflection of that is that we have created this body known as SIFC, which is headed by which has quite a few senior army officers, because the feeling was that these guys would be more forceful, more decisive. They would be less influenced by other factors that normally are coming on the civilians. And it has proven right. They are giving greater confidence. So when, for example, when we go to Saudi Arabia, we have some of these guys also from the SIFC. We go to Central Asia, they are there. Then the fact is that we have an institution also, an institutional arrangement in which the three chiefs and the chairman, joint chief, they are members of that. And there is an agenda and an item is brought in and there is a discussion. I think this is quite normal. And I can name you a dozen countries where at the apex, along with the elected civilian government, you have an input from the armed forces, because after all, they are critical players, they are highly experienced, intelligent people, and taking an input and bringing it into the decision-making process, I think is far better than your utopian desire to set them aside on a corner. I don't think that would be practical. That's not practical, frankly, in many other countries. So that's it, and it's functioning very well. And whether there is a major terrorist attack or something, the Prime Minister will get the key ministers and the key armed forces chiefs.
Well, I want to end this conversation by simply saying that we have a stake in Pakistan's stability. We have a stake in Pakistan's prosperity.
Thank you.
And we have very strong common interest today, including on a subject that has caused us great grief in the past, which is counterterrorism. And I hope that the new routes of cooperation that we have seen in the last literally few months, which the President also referred to in his address to Congress, will just end up opening the door to something that is more productive and sustainable in the months ahead. I want to thank you for all that you are doing inside your government. I would encourage you to come back to the United States. I would say at some point, once we have our own government better established with people, and of course, work with both the executive branch and the Hill, you know this better than anybody else. But Tariq, it is really good to see you. Thank you for coming to Carnegie, and I hope with your colleagues in the embassy here, we will continue this conversation for a long time to come. All the best to you and the family.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for having come here and spent more than an hour listening to me. But coming here at his invitation is a must. I have no choice. He doesn't give me a choice. He just says, you got to come, and you come. I do that. because this is a relationship that I've gained a lot, I have understood a lot. Of course, going through his books is very painful. They come with a frequency that really frightens me. I don't know how you produce them. Right?
I don't write them.
You don't write
It's
them.
AI that churns them out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Give us a hand.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, my friend. A very good history.
All the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.